Hello, everybody. It's Jill from I'm Here with Magazine, and today I'm smiling ear to ear, and I'm just gotta control myself, okay, guys? So, who we have today on our podcast, and to be on our next cover as the female to watch is Leela Sharon Aheer. Drum roll, please. Hello, Leela.
Hello, Miss Jill. How are you?
I'm so excited that you're here. You're in green. You look beautiful.
Oh,
You always do. You just blew our minds. I feel like we did a photo shoot, you guys, with Leela just the other day with Ben Layered Photography and Lily Anahone. I never say her name right. I'm so sorry. And my crew, who I've been working with for quite a few years, you think I know their names, but they did an amazing job doing the photo shoot with you. You looked so hot. That's what I
oh
said
my
to
God.
Lily. I said, Lily, she looks so hot. And I told her in the gate, okay, this woman doesn't need all the foundation, too much makeup. I said, don't be doing that on her. Just focus on her beautiful eyes. And, we're going with the green aesthetic this issue. And you brought your guitar, and like, I'm just so excited to see all those photos. And I know the audience will be too. How did you have fun with that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been called hot before, other than by my husband. But like we've been together for 35 years, so he doesn't really have a choice. But
Oh, I'm
that
sure
is
he
like,
said that at the beginning. Oh yeah, he roped you in somehow.
yeah. Well, especially being with somebody like you and other women empowering women that way, it's just like probably one of the most important things, like between us girls, and having people that elevate, right? Because that spirit of a person is really what you get attracted to, right? And seeing that in print is particular right now, Jill, that
Oh,
you're owning your, going in and looking at the print versions of things and magazines. It's such we don't do that as much anymore, right? Everything's online. Everything is about being able to touch up and fix and and hone before you actually let the real thing go. But in print and in
yeah.
magazine, it's there, and it's tactile, and it's a beautiful part of it. I like I said to you, like when you had asked me, I was actually overwhelmed in so many
Oh,
different ways
really?
that, yeah,
I
that you
kind
would.
of just threw it out there, didn't I? Normally it's a lead up, and things have been so organic, but I loved your interview on Legacy Makers with Jacqueline and Daryl Jans. And I just
Yeah.
really felt like, wow, there's so much more to politics. There's so much more to being a mother. There's so much more to being like a musician like you are, and how you all put it together. I thought that was the most fun part about what you do, is that like you keep your art with you, and you use that as therapy with the people to connect in different cultures, and you sat and played with people who are nothing in the same culture as you, and that almost has brought so many things. I've seen that all your socials, we're big fans. So
Oh,
I
that's
just see
amazing.
like, and your kind demeanor, oh my goodness, you couldn't meet somebody more kind than Leela. Like, doesn't judge anybody, but like is an example of how to for me, how to, be poised and treat people really well. You're a woman of faith, so I know that that's a huge
Mhm.
thing with what carries with you. But you carry your guitar with you. Like, I didn't even think to ask you that, and you brought that, and it just shows me, okay, guys, she is such a musician. She ain't going anywhere without her guitar. That's so cute. So let's get a little bit more into the photo shoot and what happened there.
Sure.
What was like the photos that you were like, oh my gosh, I hope people see this one? Like for you in the audience, when they see your spread, I want them to know like how thought out this was in a certain way, and what you're trying to give to the audience in the photo shoot.
Well, it's funny because I think it's symbiotic, right? Like when you have great staff, like great people that you're working with, like with Ben
Lily.
and and oh my gosh, Lily's a whole story unto herself, right?
Oh,
And
really?
right, like they're
Yeah.
just incredible humans. And Lily and I have bumped into each other in other events. We do a lot of nonprofit work together.
Yeah.
So Lily and I have worked on a couple of events for um, there's a group called Love with Humanity, and they do these food banks all over the city, little mini food banks and book banks and clothing banks, where they set them up in communities, and you take one or give one and give back, right? So it's like a lending library, or if you need food, there's canned foods in there. So Lily and I met through this, and we met through, we were at the drop-in center feeding the folks there a couple of times together. So we've gotten to know each other quite intimately
Wow.
in
And there she
that
is, your
space.
makeup
Yeah.
artist. Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
didn't
It was
actually
so
know
funny
that, you
when
guys. But I think I've
I
seen
know
pictures of
she
you guys
just,
together. Yeah.
I, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ben, I was like stalking Ben on social media because he had taken pictures of a bunch of people that I knew. So, we, he takes a lot of
Yeah.
pictures of,
He's the photographer for like the media in Calgary, I think, in a lot of
and
movies and stuff.
musicians and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So my oldest son was in the youth talent show along with some other people that Ben had taken pictures of. So I used to be in a female band. We used to play all over the place. And so he ended up taking some pictures of organizations that I had been part of back then. And so I've been totally, and
Ah,
our politics are very different, Ben
wow.
and I, and
Oh, yeah.
but I've all so when I heard that he was taking my pictures, I was actually a little Twitter pated. And I think it probably shows in the pictures is that
You know
Ben
each
is
other.
able to capture. Yeah, well, we knew each other, so there was a comfort level there, which I think
That's
that
good.
when you have an opportunity like you gave me, you want that humbleness and that real, authentic person, even if you're sitting in like weird positions, to
Yeah, it's
really, really,
always weird, but when you're doing a
yeah,
shoot,
it
but
has
you
to
know.
transmit beyond the page or beyond, the article that you're doing. Is that this, that's why they say a picture's worth a thousand words. Sorry to use an old quote, but it is absolutely true. And a person who can get to know you in a short period of time like that, whether that's through, how they interpret your face through makeup and lighting and all of that, and then a person who's able to move you into a situation where not only are you comfortable, but you're able to express that inner person, right, through that art form, which is,
Yeah, he's really
that's
good at
so,
that. I
yeah,
think
and
the
that's way
guitar
out of my,
pictures are
yeah.
gonna be like really good. If you got some good candid ones of those, I
Well,
can picture those being the ones we use almost.
oh, that's amazing. And it was interesting too, because he asked about the music side, because he had mentioned that when we were talking about this layout, that you wanted that artistic side as well as the political side, because politics is an art form too, right? And
Yeah.
being able to stay in it and maintain. And even for me, my life has been so up and down. It's mountains and valleys. There's no consistency in the political realm at all. And in fact, I was just I was running for the Signal Hill nomination, and I wasn't even allowed to run. They actually didn't accept my application to run for the federal party. So even those days, like, it's up and down. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't always have a say in how politics is going to come and go into your life. But all I know is that need to do public service, whether I'm at a table in the political space or whether I'm able to function in other spaces like in yours, like the opportunity to talk
Wait,
about
yeah, while you're not doing
women.
running. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
talk
So as much,
about that a lot with you. I feel
yeah,
like being the Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism and Status of Women, like that's in itself like what you're really known for as well. But
yeah,
for sure, like you were out there door knocking and
yeah.
I saw all the like little videos that you were posting and people, and I feel like, babe, people love you. I can't believe I just called you that. People absolutely love you because you're so fun and so genuine, and there's a lot behind you other than what you're just trying to do in your career. And you really translate how much you care about people. So let's tell the audience, like, where
Yeah.
did this start? How did you even get that title to be the minister here? Like, that is being a woman in politics is a big deal, and you're in Alberta, so I really think that you're somebody we want to shine a light on of how you grew yourself to get to this point of being able to be an influence and trying to help the community in a huge way every day.
Well, I started off, I'm a musician by trade. That's been my background my whole life. I've been teaching for like 100 years, and I sing in about 18 languages. And that's, I know that sounds like a lot, but for a normal classically trained singer, you have to sing in at least 7, right? You know, like the normal romantic languages, and usually Russian and a couple of other languages for classical music. But so I was running a studio, and then I was elected as an opposition member in Wild Rose Party from 2015 to 2019 with Brian Jean as the leader. And then we had a leadership race, and then Jason Kenney won. And then Jason appointed me as the very first multicultural minister in 25 years in the province, and then the Minister of Status of Women and Culture. And then under that portfolio, there was heritage, sport, the Francophonie Secretariat, because I speak French, and then a couple of other portfolios that were really important that fell into that. And it was this huge, massive portfolio, and I just loved it. If you know anything about me, is that the busier I am, the happier that I am. And so Jason had said to me at the beginning, for every one event that we are doing as a government, the Minister of Culture has to be doing 5. And it was about reaching out into all of these little communities that aren't necessarily engaged in our political space, and making sure that there was room and space for brand new Canadians, or even somebody who's like 5th generation, or Indigenous, you know, the Indigenous brothers and sisters as well too, making sure that the original people from this space are being engaged. And so I don't know if you know Rick Wilson. He's the Minister of Indigenous Affairs at the province right now. He's one of those beautiful and lovely people you'll ever meet in your lifetime. Mm-hmm. And his engagement with the Indigenous communities, Métis communities, Inuit communities has been just outstanding. And so I got to work with him in those ministries as well too, for the missing and murdered Indigenous women's organizations, documented at that time when Minister Wilson became Minister of Indigenous Affairs. So it was a really broad portfolio with a lot of amazing work. And your stakeholder group, and I hate saying the word stakeholders because that makes it sound like it's a thing. These are human beings that are working so hard authentically in their spaces to really, really help the Alberta spirit and keep us unified as a group, because Alberta is just such a unique microcosm all by itself. But then you have all this diversity that requires real ingenuity and authentic discussions in order to find where we align as a people. Because we can get caught up in the political discussions and the rhetoric and all of that, because divisiveness is just part of, unfortunately, it's part of the political discourse. And I've participated in that too. So I'm not acting like I've been away from it. I've participated in that as well too. But what I learned through the process of being in opposition, which is there is no democracy without opposition. It is an absolutely incredible and instrumental part of any accountability that you have as an expectation in government. Having more women in government expands that even further, because the roles that we play in those tables and at government is a level of collaboration that is unique and very different when we work together. It doesn't mean that women are not, again, they're not a category that it's homogenous where everybody agrees on things. That's farthest thing from the truth. But there is a capacity there that is very unique and different and necessary, I think. We're 51%, if not 52% of the population now. So women are going to be the major taxpayer, the major breadwinners, the major decision makers on so many things. And we're also the economic decision makers in our families and in our organizations, right? We do a lot of that at the grassroots level. So having women in government and the status of women isn't about just elevating women. It's actually about the journey of all of us together and making sure that that equality of opportunity is always met at every single turn, that we're always considering the lens and making sure that as a population, that equality of opportunity is utmost importance in any decision that we're making, so that everything going forward, that one day maybe, Jill, we won't have to look at the differences, because the equality of opportunity will be there. It will be obvious that
and wanted,
that
yeah.
I would love one day that my gender or my ethnicity were not the drivers of, a choice or anything like that. That, meritocracy is such an important piece of it, that your merit and your capacity defines who you are. However, if there are
Yeah.
barriers to entry because of those things, then equality of opportunity is something that we have to talk about all the time. And that was the really important part for me for status of women. And then, of course, the domestic violence and sexual assault pieces, which have been a huge part of the discussions, not only at government levels, but around the tables, legislation on coercive control, making sure that barriers to entry are something that become in the past, that it's not an issue anymore, and that we're constantly looking at that there are severe penalties for abuse, that there are severe penalties for and it's not just physical abuse but mental abuse, and you know if it's about dollars and money and your ability to be able to support yourself, as a single mother or single father or any of those things. Again, it comes back to equality of opportunity. Are we looking at everybody's situations and really across the line looking at policy and the impacts that it's going to have on all of those folks? Because we live in a country where anything is possible. Truly anything is possible. We are the most blessed country. We are significantly in a space of peace, considering what is going on in the world relative to the rest of the world right now. We foresee not only needs to reflect that blessing and reflect the betterment of our population as we sit right now, but has to authentically look at us as a people and how do we unify. Right now, the work is on divisiveness, on how do we pull ourselves apart. COVID was a real that was a real trigger of how divided we were truly as a community. And it's going to take a long time to overcome the pain and the suffering that people went through as a result, that even in Canada, even though we were better off than a lot of other countries, but nevertheless, Canada was built on community and family. Right,
really
like that's who we
separated
are.
us.
That's right, because we're all immigrants other than First Nations people, right? So you're coming from different countries, whether you're first generation or fifth generation. We came here to build, not destroy. And that's the fundamental thing that we have to get back to. How do we unify? How do we build? How do we get good people around the table in order to be able to navigate the difficult discussions that are going on right now and find out where it is that we agree? How do we navigate the difficulties that are going on globally in other countries? And how do we also navigate that we're going to have all of these beautiful different opinions that come to Canada, right? But now that you've chosen Canada, this is your home. How do you build? Whether you've been here for one day or 5 generations, what is your capacity to build here? What can you do for Canada? What can you do to participate? Everything gets turned back on government, and we have a risk personally as a woman in this country that I ask myself every day is, what can I give back? How can I participate? What is my duty to my neighbor, to my community, to my family, to my children, to the various forms of faith that are in this country, to the organizations, to the nonprofits, to building at all times? How do I participate in that? And so when you look at politics, there's that one side, and I've had 8 beautiful years. I'm so lucky. Even if I never participate in politics ever again, what I was able to accomplish and participate in and what I learned has been mind-boggling, but also the humbling part of being able to participate and help people. That's why I was there. I wasn't there for the job. I'm there for that next generation.
That's why you were doing the job, because you like to do what you do. What is one of the most memorable things that you yourself have made change for, that you want the audience to know about, that maybe they don't know already, or they do?
There's 3 that we worked on. 2 went through different ministries than mine, but I was very, very involved in the legislation. So one is Clare's Law, which is protections of rights over women in domestic violence. So if you, for example, are in a situation where you think that that your partner may have had been violent in the past, you have the right to know, the right to ask, but there's also the right to privacy for the person you're asking information on. But if your gut is telling you that you might be in a situation, it's a preventative measure, and it's just one step. And there's a lot more work that needs to go in that legislation, but it's a good first step to help us to have preventative measures in domestic violence. and sexual assault. The other one is human trafficking legislation, which we passed, which was, again, it's a good starter piece of legislation, but awareness and understanding of human trafficking is imperative. In Alberta in particular, we have to look at the transition of young women and girls and boys, actually children and women that are being trafficked, and that Alberta and other cities in Canada are gateways to trafficking for people into other countries. And it's scary to think about, but it's not just sexual exploitation, but also work trafficking and all of that. There's just so much that's going on, and it's a real thing. And it's wonderful to see other organizations and things really picking up on some of the work that had been done previous to our government, but also seeing that it's the issue is actually getting legs, and it needs that. And
what's the status of that? Of what's
so the
numbers?
The problem is, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The problem with human trafficking is it's very hard to detect, and data. You were asking some questions about data. This is where data becomes important. Those who have the data have the capacity to change the world. Data is everything, and that is why that is the currency really of the world. Money, power, data, and I would say data being at the top of that list. It is very difficult to track because the protections for it are also very difficult. Let's say that you come into the country and somebody takes your passport and you're working extreme amount of hours, but you have nowhere to report and no ability to be able to tell your story without getting kicked out of the country or being sent back, or there. And that's just one teeny weeny, like scraping the surface. If it's sexual exploitation, you may be being brought through a system that is unregulated and then passed through the system and then sold off to a different country. Child exploitation and pornography is at high all-time rates right now globally. And we have a very, very incredible group of people here in Alberta called ICE that work on that particular thing. There's when I last saw these folks, there was 2 billion pieces of child pornography in circulation in the world. These are children being violated at a high rate. These are things that, from a Canadian perspective, from an Alberta, and just even understanding what it is to look for. Again, it's an awareness thing, right? If you don't even know that it's an issue, you wouldn't know what to look for. You wouldn't know what to ask. You wouldn't know. That in itself could change the trajectory for one person. And every time that happens and we empower a person to be able to get out of that and live their very best lives, especially in a country like Canada, we're improving one person at a time. And it really is one person at a time. But there are these there's huge things that are going on all over the world that are bigger than both you and I or any organization or any government. But if you and I both know at a grassroots level, every single person will have that power to change the life of a person beside them. And then I passed a piece of legislation to start awareness about something called female genital mutilation. So there are 200 million in the world, women in the world, that have been subjected to something called female genital mutilation, which is a cutting of the clitoris or the sewing of the labia. And it is a horrible, horrible practice. But in Canada, in other countries, these are thousands years old practices. And those countries are working on their own pieces of legislation to work with cultures that are outside of mine. I have no right to go pointing fingers into other countries and cultures. I'll certainly help where I can, but it takes a long time to change those practices, right?
Those practices should not be existing no matter.
Correct. Well, I believe that too, but it takes time, right, to change the practices of other countries. But in Canada, we have every right to lay down strong legislation here to protect women and girls in our country. And that was where this came from. I've been working on a piece of legislation passed through the Health Act that starts awareness. And man, there were organizations that were reaching out to me going, why do I have to learn about this? This has nothing to do with me. Why would I even be asking about this? And this is exactly my point, is that you want organizations that are working with children, particularly if it's children that come, like, and this practice happens on every single continent in the world, except for the Arctic Circle. That's it. Antarctica is the only place in the world where genital mutilation isn't happening. And it's happening underground. It is happening like in the United States, in Michigan, was a couple that was actually performing this practice. They got held accountable, but because in the state itself, they didn't have legislation, it was federal legislation, they were not able to prosecute these people that were doing this horrible practice. Or we have something there's called the cutting season, where girls are sent overseas to be cut and mutilated overseas. And then the reason why I got involved in that is because I'd also been working in child marriage, and then what they call is honor beatings and honor killings, which come from cultures where girls are not at the same level as boys. Right. And it's an issue of making sure, again, that girls and women are treated with equality and are treated with
it still needs to be, you're right, it's still a huge problem.
Massive issue globally. And while we are making some really great strides in Canada, I believe that a lot of work is being done in this area. If we're still allowing our girls that become Canadian, they come here, they bring their daughters here, they bring their sons here, right? That become Canadian, that this can still happen to them on Canadian soil, or being sent off.
Job yet.
We haven't done our job. And so it's taken a while to be able, but to have that first piece of legislation passed means that every board and commission has to have legislation now in the work that they do on violence, domestic violence, coercive control, or anything else. They have to have work that is being done that opens up the discussion for this, should they see it in their organization. That's a huge step. We were the first one in Canada, probably North America, to pass a piece of legislation like that. But it's not just about female genital mutilation. It's about all things that can be done to girls that could be harmful. It's another piece of the puzzle, right? And if we're looking at human trafficking, if we're looking at all of those kinds of issues, if we're looking at the well-being of girls and women, whether they were born in Canada or whether they just arrived here yesterday, if we truly believe in the rights of the girl and with rights of women, we darn well better have legislation in our country that upholds that. Otherwise, we are completely hypocritical.
No, I just think that we chose very right to have you on our as our female cover, because that's so cool that we're talking about something that truly matters and could make a difference when people are reading it. So I feel so happy to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to get the audience a little bit to know, what matters to you in your daily life, hon. Like, what's your life look like in Calgary now? What are you up to this summer?
Well, this summer we're working a lot in the nonprofits. I'm part of several different boards and that I work on as in the nonprofits. I'm a musician, as you know, and so I do a lot of writing. And so my son Akesh, who is he's an opera singer, and he's been involved with lots of different opera companies. He was in the Calgary Opera in the last 2 seasons, and then he recently is doing a bunch of other projects, and he's going to Italy this summer for an opera program. But we write together and sing together. And so I don't know if you know this about us, but my family is like my very first priority, because if my family comes first, then so does yours, and so does my neighbor's family, and so does everybody else's family. My family is an extended group of people, but my husband and my children, my mom passed away last year on June the 3rd, and we moved in with my father to take care of him. And it's been the biggest privilege of my life being with my dad, because we always say we're taking care of him, but we take care of each other, and he's 84, he's going to be 85. He came to Canada in 1962 as a chemical engineer, and has helped grow this province like every other immigrant that came. And his passion for patriotism in Canada and Alberta is why I'm such a passionate Albertan and passionate Canadian. And same thing with my husband. He's also he's first generation by his parents, but my husband is actually a 5th generation North American, because his great granduncle, I guess, on his father's side, came to the United States and Canada on one of the last boats that came in with Punjabi workers. And so he's actually 5th generation on that side. So we have such huge pride in Canada and our community. And I don't know if you know this about my husband, but he's a recovering alcoholic. He's 7 years sober, and we're so proud of him, because this is such a difficult thing to come back to. But as a result of all of that, nonprofits that we work with. And so it comes back to the music thing. When my husband was in treatment, my son and I wrote a song that was dedicated to treatment and recovery and family. And so every chance we get, we try to perform this song to help fundraise for organizations like, Simon's House or Fresh Start or 1835 House or any organization that needs our help. We'll put it out there. The song was originally done for a group of people for drug court in Edmonton, because we really believe in that process, especially for young kids and people who are in the trafficking of drugs and that kind of thing. When they get caught, they have a choice. They can go to jail or they can go through drug court and actually use their history and their understanding to try and get kids out of using drugs and all of that, right? And so the music part of it became a way to be able to express, not only to feel better and to talk about love, which I love songs. That's my favorite thing. I write tons of love songs, but also to be able to heal and to be able to use music as a catalyst to help others to be able to heal and to help fundraise and make money for these organizations that are just doing such great work outside of government funding. The private sector funding is the most important thing that comes into these, because every single one of us, again, is impacted by addiction. And if you look in our cultures, and I can only speak for, Southeast Asian cultures in particular, Malki would be the first person to tell you the stigma around even having a discussion around alcoholism or any of these other issues that we've been talking about. So he is actually very, very involved in getting back into the community. He always says that the only way he stays sober is by being able to give back. So him and I do a lot of that work in, again, the drop-in center, Mustard Seed. I've sung everywhere at all of these organizations to help out with that kind of thing. And so now my sons are getting involved in that too. So faith and family, two top priorities for me. You have to believe in something bigger than yourself in order to be able to give back at that level and that capacity, and have the energy to keep going on the days when everything is going bad, when everything goes south.
Yeah. Well,
So,
thank you so much for sharing all of that. Oh my
oh, there's
goodness. You're
so
so
much.
passionate about so many things and helping other people, and you're such a good person. I've seen that from the time I've met you. Everybody, you can see her episode on Legacy Makers on Yes TV or on Castle app, and I think even YouTube. So definitely dive more into who Leela Aheer is. But really, she's a champion of everybody, not just women, but to us, I'm really thankful that you wanted to share your voice with us. And we hope that you come to the I'm Here With reveal party as one of the cover stars, and grace your presence with everybody. And I have some ideas for that, so I'm hoping that a few of our friends and our family come to that. And yeah, hopefully we're all wearing green maybe again. I don't know, we'll
Yeah.
have to see if I
Well, and
make you guys do that. But
if
you
you need a
look great in
musician for,
green. Wow.
oh, thank you, sweetie. Well, I love you. I mean,
Yeah, you'll do anything I say. It's the
I would pretty
rebranding
much do it.
color scheme. That's why we're doing it. It's for fun for the audience. But yeah.
Yeah. But if you want some, I would be happy to contribute, and we can do music for you in the
Yeah,
background.
maybe do a
Little
song for
party.
everybody.
Yeah, we'll write something for that I'm here with,
Oh,
and
that
something
could be
that
fun.
the
Could be
branding.
the
Yeah, well,
theme song to our commercial. Oh my gosh, you're getting me thinking about some stuff here
you
now.
got to send me some ideas, and we'll get working on it and see if it
We
works out.
will. Okay,
Yeah.
guys, make sure you go follow Leela here, and you'll see her on the next cover of I'm Here With.